Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Ahlulbayt TV, Ahlulbayt Live Fatimiyya special, and we send our condolences out to everyone watching around the world who is remembering the martyrdom of Lady Fatima salam alayha. And as we know, there are quite a few conflicting opinions about what happened with Lady Fatima salam alayha, and also tonight inshallah we're going to be discussing the topic of the Mus'haf of Lady Fatima salam alayha. Because again, there has been quite a lot of misunderstanding about what this Mus'haf is. The Mus'haf is a document, or it's a book, according to the etymology. It's a collection of pages between two boards. So this has mistakenly been taken to be the Quran of Lady Fatima salam alayha, which has led some people to accuse the followers of Ahlulbayt al-Islam of having another Quran. So tonight, inshallah, we're going to be clarifying what was the Mus'haf of Lady Fatima salam alayha. Also later on in the show, we'll be talking about the narration where the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family has said that Fatima is a part of me, whoever angers her angers me. What was the source of this narration? Because again, of course, there have been a number of different interpretations of the source of this narration, so inshallah we'll be clarifying that as well. My guest tonight is Sheikh Shabbar Mehdi, and inshallah he'll be discussing this topic. So do feel free to call in also with your questions and comments. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for giving us your time as well. So just to begin on the subject of the Mus'haf, perhaps we can go by the assumption that we have non-Muslim viewers, we have viewers of many different backgrounds. So what is meant by Mus'haf Fatima, or the word Mus'haf, and why are we discussing it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As you highlighted at the beginning of this program, these are the days where we commemorate the Lady of Light, salamullahi alayha, and the oppression that took place with her and against her, and what happened in her life. And so alhamdulillah, we have been able to have 3 shows, 2 of which are with myself, and the third with, I think, Sayyid Zafar Abbas, inshallah. So we'll look at some of these questions and these misconceptions that people have with regards to her life, how she passed away, different aspects of her life. Because Ahlulbayt alayhim wassalam, unfortunately, are not just madloom by the way in which they were killed or treated in their life. Because all of them were treated badly and unfairly, and they were killed, they were masmoom, poisoned, maqtool, shaheed. And this is found within the history. However, they were also madloom after their life. For example, Jannatul Baqi, where till today the graves are not found, or the shrines are not found.
Yeah.
Till today they are madloom in the way that people accuse them of different things. Look at each of the A'imma, salamullahi alayhim, and you'll find a different accusation.
Yeah.
Ali ibn Abi Talib did this, Hassan al-Mujtaba, this is what they say. You know, he did this, Imam Hussein did whatever.
Yeah.
Sayyida Zahra, whatever, you know, accusations they may make. And so this is part of the oppression of the Ahlulbayt alayhim wassalam after their life, the ongoing oppression. So the least we can do is try to shed some light with whichever tiny specks of ilm we have from themselves, to try and clear up these issues that are surrounding the lives of these holy personalities. May peace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon them. And so Sayyida Zahra, salamullahi alayha, again there were many misconceptions, which inshallah we'll look at next week and through the coming weeks inshallah. Today, as you have highlighted, a very important issue of Mus'haf of Fatima, salamullahi alayha, which is one of the most interesting topics. And unfortunately, what some people did, what enemies of Ahlulbayt alayhim wasalam had done, is that they used this to try and target the Shia Muslims, to try and undermine the Shia practices and the Shia school of thought. And what they would do is they would use the tactic of Yazid. What did Yazid do? Yazid said, Waylun lil musallin. Wail, as we know, is a pit in hell. In other words, may the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on those people that pray. Yes, this is half of the ayah. What's the other part? الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ, for example, السَّاهُونَ. Those who are mindless in their prayer. So Yazid cut part of the verse, or didn't do this verse afterwards, to misguide the people. For example, the Quran says, لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةِ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى. Do not go close to prayer while you are in a state of intoxication. If I just said, لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةِ, do not go close to prayer, people will be misguided. So in the same way, people took certain ahadith from our books, from Usul al-Kafi, Bihal al-Anwar, and they cut them in half.
Right.
And they said, look, they have a new Quran. They have a different Quran, and the Shia are deviated, and this is a completely different Quran of Zahra salamullahi alayha. So let's shed some light on this, inshallah. As you asked, the meaning of the word mushaf. This is very interesting because the word mushaf has its own connotations, as words generally do. As you highlighted, the Arabic definition given of mushaf is الجامع للصحف المكتوبة بين الدفتين. The collection of suhuf, sahifa, scrolls.
Yeah.
So, for example, we could call pieces of paper in this time suhuf. At that time, they would have different type of tablets. A collection of these scrolls between two covers is called a mushaf.
Right, right.
This was the literal definition. As we understand, every word has a ma'na lughawi, a literal definition, and then a ma'na, for example, istilahi, a way in which that word is used.
Right.
So even in English, in Arabic, in different languages, you will have a dictionary definition, what the word actually means and how it's used in a different way. In the same way, some words have metaphorical meanings, and they are used in that metaphorical meaning, and some have what we call haqiqi,
right,
the literal meaning, and majazi, metaphorical. Here we find that the word mushaf, as we mentioned, the collection of pieces of writing or paper or scrolls between two covers is called mushaf. However, this word mushaf was used so frequently to mean the Quran.
Yeah.
So the Quran today is called mushaf. Do you have the mushaf? Where is the mushaf, for example? So because of this frequent usage of the word mushaf to denote the Quran, people thought mushaf means Quran. Therefore, when the text spoke about mushafu Fatima, they thought it meant what? The Quran of Fatima.
Yeah.
Then when they saw this and they saw a hadith which said, and none of it is of your Quran. So they put two and two together and they thought this means that the Shia have this Quran called the Quran of Fatima, which is different to the Quran that we have. Again, a misunderstanding, number one, because of the language. Mushaf, as we have said, does not mean this. Mushaf is any book or document between daffatain. In fact, scholars also said that if we have even one page and you put two covers on it, it will be called mushaf.
Right.
Another thing to understand is, for example, the word salah. Salah, as we know, has a literal meaning supplication, salawat, dua, supplication. Then it has a meaning or usage, how it is used, a secondary meaning, as some scholars call it. This secondary meaning is the meaning of the act which has qiyam and qu'ud and ruku' and sujood, our daily 5 prayers. So it has a literal meaning. It's not used in that meaning, it's used in its secondary meaning. When a word is used for its secondary meaning and not for its primary meaning, the scholars of mantiq call this word manqul. So a manqul word is that word whose literal meaning is not denoted when the word is used, rather its metaphorical or secondary meaning is denoted. You could say the same thing about this. Mushaf means something else. But because Quran was denoted by this word mushaf by some, people took it to mean that. When we talk about Mushaf of Fatima, as we'll go into the details inshallah, this is a document, a book, a collection given to Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha, inshallah the details will come, which is hidden from us but contains many different things. And in fact, we were told that the reason why it was given to her was because of her sanctity and purity. Just to go in a bit of detail, with your permission inshallah, is the word mushaf has been used by the companions themselves. So some people may bring the objection, okay, you're saying mushaf now means the scrolls between two covers. But what about during the time of the Prophet, during the time of the Imams, when these ahadith were found? We say no, during the time of the Prophet. During the time, for example, the third Khalif, Uthman had said to Hafsa, the daughter of Omar, whose Quranic copy they use, he had said, oh Hafsa, collect these writings of the Quran so that we can do what? So that we can make a mushaf. This is in Sahih Bukhari, the references here. In other words, this proves that even during the time of the companions and the time of the Prophet, the word mushaf denoted a collection and not the Quran. Because he is saying, let us get the piece of paper so that we can make a mushaf. Abu Sa'id Khudri, the companion, when someone comes to him and says, for example, famously, someone says to him, to narrate to him some ahadith, he says, read the mushaf first. Read my mushaf. So this word mushaf therefore denotes a document, which is the document of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, and there are other documents that we also have. But because of this confusion, people thought it was a different Quran. And of course, people are like wolves. When they see a piece of meat, they jump onto it.
Yeah, because there's also this narration in Al-Kafi and Bihar al-Anwar where it is narrated that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, and it is with us by Allah, the Mus'haf Fatima salam alayha does not contain a single verse from the Book of Allah. He says, in it is what is like your Quran, only 3 times in size. So this has been, again, interpreted to say, so they have another Quran. It's not our Quran, but it's like, our Quran. It's 3 times the size. So, it's how people choose to interpret something.
And I'm still looking for that Quran that they claim that we have.
Yeah.
And they can come to our masajid and our centers. They can come here, for example, and see the copies of the Quran that we have. If it is not the same Quran, what is it? Where is this other Quran that they talk about?
So, talking about the Mus'haf of Fatima salam alayha, it was a book between 2 covers, and it was again narrated in Al-Kafi by the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. It was one of the documents or one of the collections of pages that was handed down through the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. So this is why we've got Imam Sadiq alayhi salam saying it is with us. So it has been transmitted down through, or passed down through the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. Why was it important? Or why is it important? Why has it been passed down from one Imam to the next?
I mean, the first thing we understand is that this is also a very interesting piece of history, which talks about the different documents, artifacts, objects that the Imam of the time will have with him.
Yeah.
And each Imam then passes it down to the next one he passes away. First thing to understand is there is a difference between Mushaf Fatima and Sahifatu Zahra, or Sahifatu Fatima.
Right.
What is the Sahifa? The Sahifa, we are told, is a document like a 1 tablet, 1 page, which had 14 seals or 12 seals, under which was the name of each Imam.
Right.
So this was given to each Imam. It was seen in the hands of Zahra salamullahi alayhi. So this was called Sahifat al-Zahra. Min Allah al-Aziz al-Alim. We have a hadith that this has been revealed or brought down from the angels, containing the 12 names of the Am-o-Abiha. As we understand, many different documents existed which the Am-o-Abiha had. For example, the most famous, or one of the most famous, is by the name of Jafar.
Yeah.
Jafar, as we know, is of 2 types. So there's 2 different types of Jafar. The first, we were told, Jafar al-Abyad. The second, Jafar al-Ahmar. White Jafar and red. What does this mean? Narrations tell us that when they spoke about the white Jafar, this was a collection of various different masahif and documents. So Imam Sadiq salamullah alayhi says, in this Jafar al-Abyad, there is the Mus'haf or the Suhuf of Ibrahim and of Musa and of Fatima salamullahi alayha. So all of these documents together make Jafar and of Dawood. Then we had Jafar al-Ahmar. Jafar al-Ahmar was said to be a type of document or an object within which there were weapons or something which would be used for warfare.
Right.
And so as they say, and the narrations mention, that when Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi comes, he will have Jafar al-Ahmar with him to help him in taking control of the world. So this is something to understand. So these were the 2 different types of Jafar, as we understand. We of course have the document which is the Quran of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Again, when this was mentioned, people thought, again the Shia have come up with something new, a new Quran. We said, no, this was the Quran containing the actual tafsir and asbabun nuzul and the reason of revelation of each verse, because Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullahi alayhi is that individual who was with the Holy Prophet of Islam more than any other individual that existed.
Yeah.
He spent the most time with him. He was with him almost all the time. So therefore he was there when revelation took place, the Tanzil and Inzal took place, and so he wrote down these things, and this Quran, as we know, he took it to the people and he said, this is the Quran with these, with this tafsir and ta'wil and asbab al-nuzul. They rejected it. He said, now you'll never get it. It'll come with Imam Mahdi. This is also something with Imam Mahdi. Then we have a book, excuse me, by the name of Jami'ah. So often you hear Jafar and Jami'ah.
Yeah.
Jami'ah is said to be the alwah, the tablets of Musa, salamullahi alayh. They were revealed to Nabi Musa. After he passed away, they were kept in a certain area in Yemen. The Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, this is I think mentioned in the book Basair al-Darajat. The Holy Prophet of Islam then was able to take these back and get these, and he gave them to Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, who then wrote what was on the alwah, on the tablets, on a document known as al-Jami'ah. And the Jami'ah contains information about ahkam,
right,
religious rulings. So sometimes you hear it referred to in the ahadith. This is, for example, found in Jami'ah, the Aim alayhi.
Right, okay.
So these were the documents. Other than the documents, yes, we had objects. The ring of Nabi Sulaiman, salamullah alayhi. The staff, asa of Nabi Musa. And the armor of Hazrat Dawood. All of these were kept in something called Tabut as-Sakina. This was a box. All of these objects, scrolls, whatever it may be, were kept in this box, and they were then stored. And then each Imam had this with them. Mushaf Fatima is part of these documents. What is so special about these documents? Number one, they are proof of the Imamah.
Right.
Any Imam will say, I have this with me, this is proof. Number two, they contain, as we will see inshallah, vital information. Number three, they are the gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has blessed Ahlulbayt alayhim salam with this knowledge. So these were some of the artifacts. And when we look at the purpose behind the Mus'haf, it becomes more clear as to why the Mus'haf came to Sayyidah Zahra, what was written in it, and inshallah from there the importance of this book will become clearer.
Inshallah, thank you. So, yes, I mean, as you're saying, the contents of it, again, Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have mentioned the contents of it. Now, one thing, there are a number of different narrations about how it came to her. She was grieving for the passing away of her noble father, peace be upon him and his family. And so it has been said that either Imam Ali alayhi salam had an angel inspire him with its contents, and he dictated it to her and she wrote it down, or and she was inspired again by an angel. And we're talking about ilham here again to differentiate between wahi and ilham. Okay. She was inspired directly again through ilham to write it down. It was something that was sent to comfort her. Is this correct?
I think we can make it clearer and read a hadith from Usul al-Kafi.
Okay.
Because of course, Mushaf Fatima will be in our books, not in the books of the Ahlul Sunnah. So in Usul al-Kafi we find a hadith from Imam Sadiq salamullah alayhi. إن الله تعالى لما قبض نبيه صلى الله عليه وآله دخل على فاطمة عليه السلام من وفاته من الحزن. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the life of the Holy Prophet of Islam, what overcame Sayyidah Zahra? Huzn, grief.
Yeah.
ما لا يعلمه إلا الله عز وجل, which could not be understood or comprehended other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such severe grief that she would cry and lament so much that they made the first Husayniyah for her in Baqi. فأرسل الله إليها ملكا. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He sent towards her an angel. يسلي غمها ويحدثها, to console her and to remove her her grief. ويحدثها, to inform her about certain things. فشكت ذلك إلى أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام فقال. She told this to Amir al-Mu'mineen. She informed that this angel has been coming. What did Amir al-Mu'mineen say? فقال إذا أحسست بذلك وسمعت الصوت قولي لي. When you feel the angel is with you and he is talking and you can hear his voice, tell me.
Right.
So this tells us about the transition of how this actually got down to the paper.
Yeah.
She tells Amir al-Mu'mineen that this angel has been coming. He says, when you see or hear, because this is also another debate. There is a hadith from Imam Sadiq salamullah alayhi where he says, other than Anbiya, we can only hear the angels.
Yeah.
Others say, no, this may not be correct, this hadith may not be correct, that you can actually maybe also see the angels. For example, Maryam,
yes, Lady Maryam,
in the Quran, which we may look at inshallah afterwards, about how she spoke to the angel, who came maybe in the human form. So this is a discussion. فأعلمته بذلك فجعل أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام يكتب كل ما سمع حتى أثبت من ذلك مصحفا. What happened? She would tell him, she would inform him when the angel would come and what he was saying. فجعل أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام يكتب كل ما سمع حتى أثبت من ذلك مصحفا. He would then write down whatever he had heard from her, and this then became what? A mushaf, a document. قال ثم قال أما إنه ليس فيه شيء من الحلال والحرام. There's nothing to do with ahkam in this book. ولكن فيه علم ما يكون.
Right.
From this hadith we understand
knowledge of what is
exactly what will happen in the future. From this we understand it was written by Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of course there may be different ahadith. It was written by Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi. The angel had come to console her after the death and the grief that she had after the death of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She informed Amir al-Mu'mineen of this angel coming. The angel would tell her about future events, and Amir al-Mu'mineen would write this down.
Yeah.
And from the dictations of Zahra salamullahi alayha came the mushaf, because it was dictated by her. It was called Mushafu Fatima.
Thank you very much. And we've just got a couple of minutes till we go to break, so we can continue to discuss, inshallah, again, the significance of, again, this is something that has been greatly misunderstood. But again, the topic, as you were saying just now, the issue of being muhaddath, or someone who is spoken to by an angel. Because again, some people might say, again, choosing to misunderstand, they might say that again, only prophets are spoken to by angels. So again, isn't this really implying that you're sort of insinuating that after the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, there was another person who has been spoken to by an angel. But we're just about to come up to break, so inshallah we'll continue with this discussion afterwards. And just to let our audience know that we are again remembering the martyrdom of Sayyidah Fatima salam alayha, and inshallah throughout these weeks we'll be discussing the events surrounding her martyrdom, because again, generally in the history books this is not so much focused upon, or it's an event that still many people around the world are not fully aware of. So inshallah we will be dedicating these next few weeks to talking about her life and the actual events at the end of her life, what they actually were in detail, according to a range of sources from both schools of thought. We're talking about the Mus'haf of Fatima salam alayha, the text that was transmitted down through the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to call in after the break, and we're going to break. Inshallah, we'll see you in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Ahlulbayt Live Fatimiyya special, and today we're talking about the Mus'haf of Lady Fatima salam alayha, the book of Lady Fatima salam alayha, which was passed down through the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. And we were just talking about the issue of her being muhaddath, someone who is spoken to by an angel. Now the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam have clarified the meaning of muhaddath. Again, if you turn to the collections of Al-Kafi, you can see conversations going on between people who are around the Imams, and asking them for clarification about this, that if someone is muhaddath, spoken to by an angel, does it mean they are a prophet? And the Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam clarified that no, because we have also Khidr alayhi salam, and of course Dhul Qarnayn was also meant to have, I believe, was meant to have been, and also Lady Maryam salam alayha as well, who was not a prophet but was spoken to by an angel, although some people even argue that she was a female prophet. But So to talk about Sheikh Shabbar Mehdi, to talk about what is a muhaddith, because again there are these different narrations in al-Kafi that say a muhaddith is someone who they hear the angel but they don't see them. But on the other hand, we have, as you said, Lady Maryam salam alayha, who is reported to have seen the angel.
As we understand, the word muhaddath is what they call in Arabic ismul maf'ul, meaning the passive participant,
Right.
someone to whom angels speak is the connotation, muhaddath. And as you mentioned, there is a discussion. This discussion is that yes, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, as we know, saw Jibra'il. They say when the first, he only saw Jibra'il twice in the actual full size that Jibra'il was. So normally Jibra'il would come in a different size. Because the actual size of Jibra'il, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi saw, number one, in the first revelation, number two, during Mi'raj.
Okay.
And he saw that his wings were so big that they encompassed the whole globe. These are traditions that are found. He would see the angel there. And as we are told through the Quran that there are different types of revelations that the Anbiya, salamullahi alayhim, have. For example, some have their dreams. Yeah. Dreams are their version of wahi, like Nabi Ibrahim salamullah alayhi. Others have the behind the hijab, min wara'i hijab. For example, Nabi Musa in the burning bush, whatever. Because as they say, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to speak, يوجد الكلام في جسم من الأجسام. When Allah wants to speak, He creates speech in a body.
Right.
So He created speech in this body and spoke to Musa salamullah alayhi. So this is the other type. Then is the type of actually seeing the angel. Here there could be another discussion, is that it may be possible for someone who is not a prophet to see the angel in the form of a human being.
Right, okay.
Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi, very famous, saluni saluni qabla an tafqiduni, ask me before you lose me. Someone looks at him and says, where is Jibra'il? Amir al-Mu'mineen looks up, right, left, down. He says, I have scanned the whole universe and have not seen Jibra'il, therefore you are Jibra'il. And yes, he was Jibra'il in the form of a human being. Or for example, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. In Surah Al-Dahr, when they gave the food for 3 days, the individual who was yatim, miskin, and asir was who? The poor, the captive, miskin and the prisoner was who? Was Jibra'il in the form of a human being. It becomes clear, therefore, that if the angel comes in the form of a human being, other than Anbiya can see this. Whether they can also see the angel in the form of the angel is then a different discussion. As you mentioned, Maryam salamullahi alayha, the Quran says, وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اسْتَفَاكِ وَتَحَّرَكِ وَاسْتَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. When the angels said to Maryam, in other words, proof that angels can talk to other than a prophet. And they said, Allah has chosen you and purified you and chosen you above the women of the world. Or for example, the famous incident, إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِالرَّحْمَانِ إِن كُنْتَ تَقِيًّا, when she sees the angel, again in the form of a human being. And she says, إِنِّي أَعُوذُ بِالرَّحْمَانِ, I seek protection. If you are muttaqi, stay away from me. What does he say? إِنَّمَا أَنَا رَسُولُ رَبِّكِ لِأَحَبَ لَكِ غُلَامًا زَكِيًّا. I'm a messenger of your Lord to give you a pure child. So it becomes clear then that angels can talk. The concept of being muhdath and muhaddath. This is possible, clearly. With regards to seeing, again, there's a difference of opinion in this matter.
Okay, thank you. No, that's a good clarification and logical. It makes sense as well. And again, just to talk about the contents of the Mus'haf. Again, as we're saying, it's and as the Imams of Ahlulbayt al-Islam have said, that it contains everything about what is going to happen, including, I think, who are the Shia and who are not going to be the Shia as well. So, so this knowledge of the genealogy, the family trees, or even, you know, who's going to become Shia, for example, is recorded in that book. Is that correct?
Yes. To understand this, we can say that the knowledge of Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam is split into three different areas. The first is haqa'iq al-ashya. Haqa'iq al-ashya meaning whatever is in the universe, the physical realities. So ilm of science and astronomy and all mathematics, this type of knowledge. Haqa'iq al-ashya, the reality of things. And they were given this perfectly. There was nothing in this area that they did not know. The second was ilm ma kan wa ma yakun. Knowledge of what happened in the past, what is happening presently, what will happen in the future. Mata sha'u alimu, hadith. When they want to know, they know. People asked, did Imam Husayn salamullah alayhi know the exact date when he was going to die? Of course. He had this ilm ma kan wa ma yakun. He knew the exact time. Because mata sha'u alimu. When they want to know, Allah allows them to know that. If they want to know what time this will take place, Allah gives them this ilm. This is the second.
I was just going to say as well, because this is again is a big discussion, as we know, among other schools of thought, because they they bring up the verse, you know, where you know, that says that Allah has the keys to the unseen. You know, with Him is the knowledge of the unseen. And then again, this is a very interesting clarification that has been made by the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam as well. That again, people, you know, people were coming to them and saying, so does this mean that you know the unseen then? And they say, no, we don't know the unseen. But when we want to know something, Allah makes it known to us. Again, very beautiful.
So the wording is changed around.
Very beautiful and concise and logical answer. That because they are the beloved of Allah, you know, when they wish to know something, Allah makes it known. And then it's actually no longer classified as ilm al-ghayb or knowledge of
And then there's a long discussion about absolute ghayb and relative ghayb, and that's a very deep discussion as well. So as we said, this is the second, and this was what is found in the Mus'haf. And the third is knowledge of Allah. So when people ask the question, if Ahlulbayt were given perfect knowledge, why did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, Rabbi zidni ilma, increase in my knowledge? We say this third area. Let's say someone in university studies biology, microbiology, unit 1. Now the textbook will be limited. Why? It will be 500 pages. Why? Because the subject itself is limited. The amount of knowledge that is in that subject is limited. If a subject is limited, the amount of knowledge in that subject is also limited. Allah is unlimited. Therefore, knowledge of Allah is also unlimited. Therefore, no matter how much knowledge someone gains of Allah, they can always gain more knowledge. So this was what was meant by Rabbi zidni ilma. It doesn't mean that the Prophet didn't know, for example, haqa'iq al-ashya and physics and things like that. Of course he did. Knowledge of Allah is always increased. There's no limit to it.
And actually, because then if we were to say, and again this is taught in the Tawheed by Imam Ali alayhi salam, that if you put a limit on Allah, then you know you have that's basically a form of shirk to put a limit. It's anthropomorphization. So put a limit on Allah, which is incorrect, because He is unlimited and infinite, and So now again another slightly tricky question, but this again has been put to me in the past, that if Islam, and of course again many viewers from other schools of thought may have these questions, if Islam was completed, and you know, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, he is the final prophet, there's no other prophet to come after him, you know, everything that we need to know was revealed to him, then what is the need for having a Mus'haf such as this? What is the need for Lady Fatima salam alayha to have this book?
I think the most easiest and simplest reply to this is Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. The Quran mentioned 3 different stages of guidance and obedience. The first was Allah. The second was Rasul. The third was the people of authority. Therefore, the Quran clearly states that guidance of mankind and nas is based on these three different levels. The first is the absolute level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where I obey Allah. How do I know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told me to follow and to stay away from? His messenger.
Yeah.
His messenger then also uses ulul amr. Who is ulul amr? Not, of course, any politician.
Yeah.
This is also another discussion about who the ulul amr are.
Yeah.
Ulul amr are those chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mansus min Allah, Ahlulbayt alayhim wasalam. Therefore, the Quran already mentions, after Rasul,
right,
there's also other people you have to follow. If this argument that the Prophet has gone, that's it, the Quran would never have said this. The Quran mentioned this system of the ulul amr. Secondly, people ask, why wasn't all of this knowledge placed in the Quran? Number one, the Quran is a very difficult book for us to comprehend.
Yeah.
It is completely unique. Its genre is unique. The depth of the Quran is veiled in front of our eyes. We don't understand the depth of the Quran in actual fact. Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi sat with Ibn Abbas, Hibr al-Ummah. Ibn Abbas was called Hibr al-Ummah, the saint or the teacher of the Ummah.
Yeah.
He sat with Ibn Abbas after Salatul Isha, giving him tafsir of Quran. Ibn Abbas says, the whiteness of dawn appeared in the sky and we had not crossed the letter Ba, the tafsir of the letter Ba. So this Quran has a lot that we don't understand, is found within it, according to a hadith. But also, if all of the events that were going to take place in this world were found in the Quran, how big would the Quran be?
Yeah.
People can't even read this Quran that we have, the size
That's
that we have. If Allah had made the Quran bigger, with all these intricate details, then who would be able to lift the Quran and open the Quran? And then there's a discussion about how the Quran itself shows that it requires explanation by others. So this showed to us that there is a two-sided form of guidance. To just give a bit of clarity to this, huruf al-muqatta'at, the detached letters, Yasin, Taha, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, Alif, Lam, Mim, Alif, Lam, Ra. If you were to tell me, for example, doctor, that I will give you a book, you read this book, by the end of this book, you will become an expert in accounting, and you require no teacher. So I took the book and I said, okay, good, maybe I can try accounting, see what it's like. I opened the book, first page, it had all type of terminology, I have no idea what it said. It said A3, 4F. I said, doctor, you told me I don't need a teacher for this. The first page has these symbols. I have no idea what this means. These symbols are proof that I have to go to a teacher to understand this. The Quran did the same thing. The Quran had these letters, Alif, Lam, Mim, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad, to show what? That you have to go to the teachers of this book to understand. This is not a book that you can read by itself.
Right, right.
The Quran openly says that you have these two forms. Ulul Amr, Ahlulbayt, and the Quran. Right.
Thank you very much. That's a very good, clear answer. And I hope, again, from our viewers from other schools of thought, that also clarifies one of the big questions that goes on between the school of Ahlulbayt and the other schools of thought as well. And so we've got the what else is in the Mus'haf? We have, as you said, the knowledge of future events. What else is in it?
So we find a hadith, for example, of Imam Sadiq salamullah alayhi, when the Zaydis, the school, the Zaydi group, they had tried to get a certain ruler, Muhammad bin Abdullah, they tried to support him as a governor and a ruler. And Imam Sadiq salamullah alayhi said he cannot be a ruler because in Mus'haf Fatima, his name is not mentioned as one of the rulers.
Right.
Because we are told Mus'haf al-Fatima contains all of the names of people that will rule, all of the events that will take place. For example, according to Basair Darajat, again this book mentions that the Mus'haf speaks about the certain mulhideen, heretics, coming to power in 128 AH. This was the time when the Abbasids came to power. In other words, it mentions all of the events that take place, all of the people that will rule. It mentions about the Shia and what happens in their life as well. So a lot of detail was in. That's why it said 3 times the Quran ulama again have a discussion. Does this actually mean 3 times in size, or is 3 used to denote
much more?
Much more. Which sometimes in the Arabic language, for example, the number 7.
Yeah.
The number 7 in the Arabic language can often denote some frequency, kathara. Some scholars say this could also be the case in this narration of 3 times more. So it contains these type of events of what will happen in the future, who will rule, what will happen with the Shia until the day of Qiyamah.
And this would have been a comfort for Lady Fatima salam alayha as well, because she would see, you know, all the way to the end of time, you know, eventually the triumph of justice at the end of time, you know, from her progeny.
Of course, this is one of the reasons why it was given to her, and she was consoled by it. That then she would see how Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi will come and take revenge for what happened with her son Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi and with her other progeny. In fact, there are mention of a hadith which say that Jibra'il وَيُخْبِرُهَا بِمَا يَكُونُ بَعْدَهَا فِي ذُرِّيَّتِهَا. What will Jibra'il tell her about? He will inform her about what will happen after her with her progeny.
Right, right.
So of course she will read, and she will be informed, rather not read, she'll be informed about what will happen to each of the imams, how they will die, by whom they will be killed. And then, as you said, the consoling that Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi will come, her son will come, Ibn Zahra will come, who will then take revenge, and the rule of Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam will be over this earth. So again, we mentioned not even one harf is from the Quran. Why was this said? They mentioned clearly that ما فيه من قرآنكم حرف واحد. Not even one harf. Why? So people would not think that this is a Quran that we have
another Quran
changed or altered. It's nothing to do with the Quran. It's another document which contains the events which will take place until the day of judgment, with the dhurriya and the progeny of Zahra salamullahi alayha, and future events that take place.
Okay, thank you. So now to think about, I mean, there's also discussion about reliability of narrations. I think that's a good point to raise as well, because again, people will argue that this Mushaf Fatima salam alayha is just something that's made up. It's a kind of, you know, something that the Shia have made up. So again, if someone was to investigate, how can we actually verify the truthfulness of this phenomenon? How can they check?
Of course, if someone is not part of the madhab of Ahlulbayt, this is difficult.
Yeah.
But for those that are part of the madhab of Ahlulbayt, not only numerous narrations and indications, again and again the Aimma alayhim as-salam will speak about the Mus'haf. And number 2, when you have a hadith, so the ahadith are mentioned, for example, in Usul al-Kafi, in Bihar al-Anwar, volume 26, for example, Usul al-Kafi, volume 1. When you have a set of ahadith and you look at it logically, does it make sense logically?
Yeah.
You can see the same thing with this. Does it make sense logically? We've logically understood that it is possible for angels to speak to Zahra salamullahi alayha and descend. Because some people also mention this. They mention a hadith which says, Jibra'il had said to the Holy Prophet of Islam, after your death, I will never descend onto this earth. Number 1, that hadith, the ulama of hadith, they ripped it apart. They said it's completely unauthentic.
Okay.
Number 2, what about Laylatul Qadr?
Yeah.
تنزل الملائكة والروح. Okay, Ruh, let's say it's not Jibra'il.
Yeah.
But is Jibra'il not part of Malaika?
Yeah.
They descend every single year. So can it not be that, so that does that not prove that Jibra'il or other angels do descend? And there's a famous hadith, excuse me, Jibra'il says, I will descend onto this earth 10 other times after you. And then he mentions the first time I will take this and do whatever. That is mentioned. So when we look at a hadith, we look at it logically. Does it make sense logically? Is there a basis of this? The basis is of course clear, that she had the huzn and the grief, and she was consoled by this. And there is such frequent mention of the imams to this mushaf, that there is no doubt in our heart that this is a true document and part of the aqidah.
Thank you. And perhaps just to conclude on this, again, knowing, and again, we can encourage our viewers to read the sources that do talk about this, because again, it's talking about this particular mushaf among many of the other documents, as you mentioned, or the books that have been mentioned. It's important to read again what the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam have said about it. In a sense, again, another slightly tricky question, but how can that, if we are thinking about us today in the situation that we're in, how can knowing about this mushaf benefit us today? Because I'm sure that Lady Fatima salam alaiha, she gained benefit and comfort from it, and it has been kept among the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. It's with the Imam of our time, Ajjalullah Farajah Sharif. Now, how can it benefit us?
The first way it can benefit is by understanding, or it is one of the proofs of the great status of Sayyidah Zahra.
Right.
So this should strengthen our belief in her greatness and fadila, that she was the greatest woman of the all of the women of the world, and her status was so high that this is one of the proofs of her infallibility.
Yeah.
That the angels come to her and they mention to her these things. Musa salamullah alayhi, when he wanted the revelation, of course this is different, this is not revelation, as you mentioned, ilham and wahi is different.
Yeah.
But Musa salamullah alayhi was told to go to the mountain. You come to the mountain, we'll give you revelation. But see the difference here? That they come directly to the Prophet of Islam to give the Quran, and to Zahra to give this ilham, this different type of information.
Yeah.
Mushaf Fatima, number one, shows the great status. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, because of her great status, she was given this.
Yeah.
So this should increase our love and reverence and respect and honor for this great lady. Number one. Number two, it is a reminder of us of her grief. Why was she given this to her? Because of her grief.
Yeah.
So again, this takes us back to that central point of her oppression. So most of when we mention it, it should remind us of the grief.
Yeah.
Number three, when Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi comes, how will we identify him? One way they say is through these objects.
Yes.
If, for example, Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi came to us and said, I have with me Mushaf Fatima, and we said, I have no idea what that is,
yeah,
then what will happen? Knowing about these things, how he will come, what he will bring with him, helps us to envisage how he will rule, and gives us a sense of comfort that it has been, it is known rather that he will come, that the future events have been recorded. And there is, for example, the shining light at the end of this dark tunnel of oppression and dhulm and injustice.
Thank you. I think also, just to conclude the discussion, what is also quite fascinating is that, again, of course, you know, we are commanded to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, and the way of Islam is a way of knowledge, a way of seeking knowledge, and that these texts that were in the possession, of the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, are also other forms of knowledge. As you said, they had the knowledge of the physical world, you know, knowledge of physics, knowledge of astronomy, knowledge of medicine, and it's in some kind of interesting way saying, look, there are other types of knowledge that you know, you actually have to have a very pure heart and a very high status before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be given these types of knowledge. But it's also indicating that you know, these are types of knowledge connected to, you know, the higher realms, connected to the divine, connected to Allah.
The famous hadith, ittaqullah yu'allimukumullah. This is also a clear expression of that. Have taqwa, Allah will give you ilm. Right. There were certain scholars that had knowledge of explaining dreams, the ta'bir, and you know, what this dream means. Can I find this in any book? Ittaqullah yu'allimukum Allah. Have taqwa, Allah will give this knowledge to this heart of yours. So this was also a expression of this, how she was given this knowledge because of her purity and chastity, as an inspiration for us that if we want knowledge of this type of, as you said, the inner knowledge, even outer knowledge is from taqwa. Ittaqullah, Allah will give you this knowledge.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for that discussion. Inshallah, after the break, we'll be talking about the famous narration about angering Lady Fatima salam alayha. We'll see you shortly after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Ahlulbayt Live on Ahlulbayt TV, and we are again remembering the days of the martyrdom of Lady Fatima salam alayha, and following on from our discussion of Mus'haf Fatima, and I hope that some of that discussion has helped to clarify some points for you, and I hope you're sitting there making notes, or else this will be inshallah loaded up on YouTube later for people to watch, or it will be repeated inshallah tomorrow as well, not quite sure what time. But now we're going to move on to a discussion about, again, and this has been narrated in a number of sources from other schools of thought, or other madahib as well, about how the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family said, so it's narrated in Bukhari, for example, that Fatima is a part of me, so whoever makes her angry makes me angry. Now, we know that with regard to these events that took place with a party of people descending upon the house of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and threatening him threatening him unless he would give his allegiance, the whole violence that arose from that, the which led Lady Fatima salam alayha to be angry with certain people to the day she died. So there is clear evidence that she was angry with those who had organised this party to go and attack the house where she lived. Now, it seems, however, that another context has been attributed to this narration. So, what is the context of this narration?
As you mentioned, the narration, Fatima bad'atun minni man adaha faqad adhani. She is a part of me, whoever angers her, angers me. Her anger was based on two issues, as we understand. The first is that the first Khalif and the second Khalif, what had they done? They had taken Fadak, Abu Bakr and Umar. Therefore, she then goes into the government building, whatever it may be. She gives the khutbah of Fadak, known as khutbah al-Fatakiyya, and she is angered by these two individuals for doing so, for taking this from her. And this, inshallah, we'll look at more detail of the Fatak affair, inshallah, next week. Secondly was the anger of the house and Umar al-Khattab coming with a group of people and attacking the house and attacking Sayyidah Zahra, which again will come in more detail. So this was why she was angered. This hadith, first thing to understand, was a very interesting anecdote of Sheikh Bahai. Sheikh Bahai was one of these scholars who traveled a lot, as many of the previous ulama al-mutaqaddimin would do. They would travel a lot. Tabligh, wherever they would go, they would preach, they would learn as well. Siru fil ard, as Quran says. Sheikh Bahai, therefore, is in Egypt. At the time, Egypt was totally against the Tashayyu and the Shias. So he did taqiyya. He was a scholar, he was teaching, he was in taqiyya. One person comes to him and says, "Oh Sheikh, have you ever had a debate with these Shia people?" So, of course, he's Shia himself. He says, "Yes, in Mecca, when I was traveling, I met some of them and we had long arguments, and I gave my argument until they had one hadith. And that hadith put water over the flame of this argument of mine." He says, "What hadith?" He says, "Fatima bad'atun minni man adaha faqad adhani." He says, "Oh, really?" He says, "Yes, it's in Sahih Bukhari on this page." So the person comes back the next day and says, "What big liars are these Shia?" He said, "Why?" He says, "It's not on this page, it's 5 pages afterwards." Sheikh Bahai is thinking that was not the point. The point was it was in this book.
Yeah.
Is this your logic and mentality and aql that you're saying, no, it was 5 pages afterwards? This hadith is in there. And it is in there that she was angered by individuals. Is this not enough?
Thank you very much. And we'll continue this discussion. But I believe we have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. I hope that you are all well. I would like to comment on the issue. My name is Ayub. I'm calling from Sweden.
Okay.
You know,
welcome.
Sayyida Fatima bint Rasulillah is the daughter of our Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad Abul Qasim Ahmad Khair Khalqillah, the best creation, peace be upon him. And I would like to think that the Quran is our last guideline, you know, and we from all Muslim sects, whether we are Sunni or Shia or whatever, we should follow what the Quran says, and the Quran is the word of God. And can the brothers hear me? Am I on the television?
Yes, you are. You are on television.
Yeah, mashallah. So I think that it is what the Quran says that we should follow, and what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that we should abide by. And regarding this issue, I have heard that the Shia brothers, that they believe that Sayyida Fatima bint Rasulillah radiyallahu anha alayhi salam, that she is ma'soom, meaning that she doesn't make any mistake like the Prophet. And is this correct that my Shia brothers believe that Sayyida Fatima is ma'sooma? Could I please can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we will answer your question.
So my question on this is that the Quran mentions the best Sayyidat. Allah mentions Sayyida Maryam. Allah mentions the prophets from Sayyidina Adam. He mentioned Sayyidina Nuh. He mentioned Sayyidina Isa. He mentioned Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhim as-salam, and he mentions by name Sayyidina wa Habibina wa Tabib Qulubina, and the man in our heart, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So my point is, if our Shia brothers believe that the 12 Imams, including Sayyida Fatima, that they are ma'soomeen and better than the Prophet, the example Prophet Jesus, why isn't the 12 Imams mentioned in the Quran? Because Allah has said that everything we need is in the Quran. Why didn't Allah clearly say to us, if Imama is so important in the Shia creed or in the Islamic faith, why hasn't Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O believers, we have sent to you 12 Imams after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that you should follow.
Okay.
And that Sayyida Fatima is ma'sooma, meaning that she is perfect, like other prophets.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions, and they are important questions because these are probably two of the questions that come to people's minds. Most of all, the issue of well, we can talk about the fact of isma or being ma'soom as well. So is it considered that Lady Fatima salam alayha was ma'sooma, and if so, why? And again, as many people do mention, well, Lady Maryam salam alayha was mentioned in the Holy Quran. Why hasn't Lady Fatima, by the name of Fatima, because we know that Kawthar also was one of her names, and that's mentioned in the Holy Quran. But why wasn't the name Fatima mentioned in the Quran?
We thank the dear brother for calling from Sweden. I think it's from dear brother Ayub from Sweden. And I think there were many questions put into one. The first issue of Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha being ma'sooma. As we understand, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In them you find the best of examples. Islam is a religion which has given us these guides and these role models to look up to and to follow and to emulate and to do ita'ah and obey. As we understand, we were given these Anbiya salamullahi alayhim and A'imma alayhim as-salam. And so these were role models for both the men and the women. However, there are certain issues specific to women. Issues of work, issues of prayer, different types of issues. Therefore, would it not be unjust of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not give a female infallible role model? Because he gave 12, for example, or 124,000. And he showed, look, these men are infallible. They have reached a level where they have never committed a sin, and they do not commit sin out of their own will and power and strength. Will, for example, a female Muslim not come and say, Ya Allah, you are saying that a man can become ma'soom, but a female cannot become ma'sooma? Is this right, Ya Allah? You made me a woman, but you're trying to show to me that I can never reach that level, or a level of sinlessness. This would be unjust by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Logically, it does not make sense that a female infallible role model is present when male infallible role models are also present. Therefore, logically, it makes sense that there has to be at least one female role model who was infallible, Sayyidah Zahra. Number two, clear proof is in Ayatul Tathir, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the rijs is removed and is away from Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. And it is of course clear that Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha is in Ahlulbayt. There's no doubt about this.
Everyone knew she was of Ahlulbayt.
Whether they want to discuss our holy Imam salamullahi alayhi, whatever, Sayyidah Zahra is of course part of Ahlulbayt. And so this verse is, she is a misdaq and a referent of this verse. The second question was about the naming.
About why haven't they been named?
So the first thing we understand is that out of all of the women, only Maryam salamullahi alayha is mentioned by name, and Zahra in the way of Kawthar. And other references to her are made in many places in the Quran. In Surah Al-Dahr, or when the Quran talks about Dhul Qurba or Dhul Qurba, the near, next of kin, near relatives. No other woman is mentioned by name. So people ask, what about, Asiya? Well, she was called Imra'atu Fir'aun, the wife of Fir'aun. She was not mentioned by name. What about, Hajra? Again, Imra'atu Ibrahim, the wife of Ibrahim. When we compare Ayatul Tathir and the ayah that we mentioned before, إذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله استفاك وتحرك واستفاك على نساء العالمين. There was a scholar, his name slips my mind, Allama Muhammad Tehrani, I think his name was. He was having a debate with a Christian about who is greater, Maryam or Zahra. So the Christian scholar says, Quran is your book or my book? He says, Quran is our book. I'm Muslim. He says, your book itself proves that Maryam is greater than Zahra salamullahi alayhima. How? He says Maryam is mentioned by name, Zahra is not mentioned by name. Allama Tehrani suddenly gets in a sense of power and emotion, and he says, have you ever been to the palace of the king? At the time the kings would rule. He said, yes. He says, when you go into the palace of the king, does the king speak to his servant by name? Or does he speak to his princess and the royal family by name? He says, of course he speaks to the servant by name. The royal princess is not spoken to by name. He says, is this not clear? Maryam, the name was taken. Zahra was mentioned in beautiful different descriptions in the Quran. This is the first thing. Number two, those individuals that were ready to kill our holy Imams. They were ready to kill the grandson of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Imam Husayn salamullah alayhi, and do what they did to Imam Hassan salamullah alayhi. Would they not then take this Quran and change it if they saw the name of Fatima salamullahi alayha, and if they saw the name Ali? Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed references to Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam, clear references of their fada'il and virtues, but He didn't put their name in the Quran, because of course it would be clear that people would take this and they would try to destroy the Quran.
Yeah. Or also, as it has been said, and this is known as well, that their lives would have been in danger. So again, their identities have been protected but indicated. And again, going back to the hadith of Thaqalayn, which is mentioned in numerous sources in the al-Sunnah books of hadith, where again, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, said, I leave you two weighty things, the Quran and my Ahlulbayt, alayhim salam, hold to those two and you'll never go astray. Of course, the Holy Quran does need a commentary on it. I mean, in all schools of thought, everyone depends upon a commentary to understand Holy Quran. And it was the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam who wrote commentaries on the Holy Quran in order that we can understand what verses are referring to. So this is why, again, there are indications in Holy Quran, but the explanation of that indication comes in.
Where were the Khulafa mentioned by name in Quran?
Yeah, the Khulafa have not been mentioned in Holy Quran.
Simple.
Yeah.
Quran refers to Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam clearly, whether it be ayatul walaya or innama nut'imukum liwajhi Allahi la nuridu minkum jaza'an. All the different verses that the Quran speaks about. This, of course, is a different topic in general, but this is a very brief and ijmalan, a very incomplete, but a part of the answer that can be given.
So I hope that helped our caller, inshallah, to get a clearer understanding of these points. And so then, to go back to the discussion about this narration, that Fatima is a part of me, and so whoever makes her angry makes me angry.
Unfortunately, the state of affairs that have taken place is that Banu Umayyah, who are called, as the Quran says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الرُّؤْيَا الَّتِي أَرَيْنَاكَ إِلَّا فِتْنَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَالشَّجَرَةَ الْمَلْعُونَةَ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. If I'm not mistaken, surah number 17, that the Prophet of Islam sees the dream when monkeys are on the minbar. And the Quran calls the rule of those people when this will take place, the rule of the shajaratul mal'una, the accursed tree. The Quran also speaks about shajaratul khabitha,
right,
the monstrous impure tree. This was referring to Bani Umayyah, Bani Abbas. Banu Umayyah, individuals like Muawiyah.
Just to interject there as well. Again, this is referring, taking the tafsir of those verses. We know that that's referring to certain people, and it was well known by people who were around at the time that certain verses refer to certain people. We have, so again, if someone is not going to depend on a tafsir to interpret the Holy Quran, they might say, well, there's a tree and it's got branches, and what is this tree? And I don't understand, and well, it's very mysterious.
سأل سائل بأذاب واقع. Questioner questioned, he was met with adhab. If I have no tafsir, how do I know what this is? Who was the questioner? What was the question about? Why was he given adhab? Where was he given adhab? Tafsir. Ahlulbayt alayhim. So we were speaking about...
So you were speaking about the shajara that refers to Banu Umayyah.
So Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, the way in which they manipulated Muawiyah and Abu Hurairah and the types of hadith that they brought forth to manipulate the situation. Whenever part of Fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen was brought forth, they would then, أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها, and then the wall of the city is this, and the roof of the city is this. When does a city ever have a roof? So these type of manipulations that took place with this hadith, the same thing took place. فاطمة بذأة مني من آذاها فقد آذاني. Whoever displeases her and angers her has angered me. What did they do? They manipulated different ahadith to say, who angered Fatima? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Na'udhu billah, al-'iyadhu billah. They say Amir al-Mu'mineen angered her. Or they say that, yes, the first Khalif and the second angered her, but look, Ali did it as well. So we're less blameworthy. This was a tactic that was tried to be implemented with these fake ahadith. When you look at them, it's clear that they are fake. First of all, where is this hadith present? فَاطِمَةُ بَذْأَةٌ مِّنِّي مَنْ آذَاهَا فَقَدْ آذَانِي. There are many sources. Whether it be يَنَابِيُ الْمَوَدَّةِ كَنْزُ الْأُمَّةِ فَرَائِدُ السِّمْتَيْن. Fara'id al-Simtayn is one of the main sources where the whole story of Zahra and the oppression of her is mentioned.
Tirmidhi as well, Sunan Tirmidhi.
The list goes on. Tadhkiratul Khawas of Ibn Jawzi, whatever. The first fake narration put forward was that Abu Dhar narrates that I migrated with Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Ja'far al-Tayyar, to where? Abyssinia. We were gifted, or he was gifted, Ja'far was gifted, Ja'far the brother of Imam Ali, was gifted with 4,000 dirhams and a slave girl worth 4,000 dirhams was gifted to him. He did what when we came back? This is the wording of the hadith. When we came back, Ja'far gifted that slave girl to Ali ibn Abi Talib. And Amir al-Mu'mineen one day was in his house and she was lying on his lap, and Zahra comes in and says, "What have you done, Ali?" And then she says, "Do you give me permission to go to the Holy Prophet of Islam?" And she goes and complains, and so this hadith comes up.
Right.
Let's look at this. First of all, the ulama and mujtahideen and the great scholars of hadith whose job it is to look at these hadith, they've had mentioned how the narrators are either majhulul ayn and majhulul hal. This is not something we can go into. The great respected ulama and fuqaha deal with this. How they are min al-majahil. They are unknown.
Okay.
So that's with regards to the
basically they're unknown.
Okay. Look at it through a point of aql, intellect. Number one, Abu Dhar in this hadith says, I migrated with Ja'far al-Tayyar to where? Abyssinia. Look at the sources. Abu Dhar never went to Abyssinia. So how does this make sense that he went with Ja'far to Abyssinia, then we had the slave girl, then we came back together. It is unanimously understood that Ja'far al-Tayyar comes back when? At the time of Khaybar. That's when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa says, I don't know what I'm more happy about. The door of Khaybar being pulled by Ali ibn Abi Talib, or the return of Ja'far. So we know Ja'far came back at Khaybar. Khaybar takes place 8 AH. Abu Dhar was someone who fought in the battle of Khandaq. Khandaq takes place 5 AH.
Right.
So how can Abu Dhar then also be in Khandaq, at the same time be in Abyssinia, Ethiopia, then return at the same time? It becomes clear that Abu Dhar was never with Ja'far al-Tayyar.
Yeah.
And Ja'far had returned, Abu Dhar was already there. So this hadith does not make sense aqlan, logically.
Okay, thank you. Can we just, we just got a call,
yes,
and we've just got a few minutes before we have to end, but hopefully we'll finish this discussion. Assalamu alaikum, we have a caller.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, hope you're well.
Yes, I'm fine. Just been kind of researching the whole Shia and the Sunni sects. What I believe is a split occurred is between the balance of power after Ali was deposed by Muawiyah. This is what I think has happened. But what I've been researching is that there was actually a Fatimid Caliphate from 909 to 1171. What I want to ask is, during this time, when obviously the Shia were in power, they didn't really do anything with this caliphate. I mean, didn't really expand into any more territories.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, why is it that the Shia really want to come into power when they really have no desire to expand?
Okay. Yes, well, would it be possible, inshallah, because actually at the moment what we're speaking about is a specific topic which we have to finish in the next couple of minutes. You've got an interesting question, and inshallah, if you could possibly give your contact and we can contact you back with an answer to your question, because we're actually on a particular topic right now which we need to finish. But if you leave your email address, we can get back to you to answer that.
Because the Fatimid dynasty was of the Ismailis, it was separate from the Shia. That's a whole different issue. That will take a long time with regards to history.
We need a whole program on that.
Yes, to discuss that.
Discuss it
very quickly, the second narration was that Amir al-Mu'mineen wanted to marry the daughter of Abu Jahl. Sayyidah Zahra was angry. She complained to the Prophet. Then this hadith came. Again, let's look at this. Number one, why would Sayyidah Zahra be angry? Is it haram for Amir al-Mu'mineen to marry another wife? It's part of the Quran. Why are you lowering the status of Zahra and saying she would be angry with something that the Quran speaks about? This doesn't make sense. She was someone in whose house the Quran was revealed. She is ma'sooma. So she will not object to anything that the Quran speaks about. Number two, if this was true, did the Prophet of Islam not have 9 wives at one point? If we take it to be true, did he not have 9 wives at one point? The Prophet of Islam himself married the daughter of Abu Sufyan.
Right.
So how would the Prophet of Islam then say, Ali, what are you doing? If he himself married the daughter of Habiba. Abu Sufyan's daughter. If we take this to be true. Secondly, unanimously, it is agreed that this hadith is narrated by someone called Musawwar ibn Makhrama. This individual narrates from Akrama, the son of Abu Jahl. Akrama, as we understand, as Ibn Abdul Bar in his al-Isti'ab mentions, one of the books of Rijal of the Ahl Sunnah, he mentions that it was in 8 AH that Makhrama was brought to Medina. When you do the math, we don't have time. When we do the mathematics, it turns out that Makhrama was 4 to 6 years old when this took place. How can he then be a Sahabi?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I wish we could continue this discussion. Inshallah, we will continue with this next week. Assalamu alaikum.